The voice of sharing, dünya ASEAN.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Good morning, this is Grace.
And of course, this is a very beautiful Monday morning where we report you news from Southeast Asia. First of all, someone actually just won an Indonesian Peace Award.
And it's very interesting because it was this nation called North Korea.
What did you feel, Grace?
Well, it is quite a surprising news, but then I wonder how they have received this Peace Award, and then I'll see what we have to say about it after all.
And this North Korean leader, as we all know, in the past, he has won some awards. For example, the one award conferred by one of the Malaysian university, and now it was conferred by one of the organization which is headed by the Sukarno's daughter, and this prominent Indonesian has ranked North Korean leader alongside Myanmar's pro-democracy advocate Aung San Suu Kyi and India's pro-independence leader Mahatma Gandhi by honoring him an award for his statesmanship. This is really, really unexpected, I would say.
Yeah, for sure. And also he has dealt with his dislikes with ruthless abandonment as well. And that include the execution of his uncle Chang Sang-tek, where it was famously sort of spreaded on the social media as well, who is reportedly once liked and then went on to describe as a despicable human scum. Well, this particular incident where his uncle, we know the story where he fell asleep during the meeting and then that showed disrespect towards the North Korean leader and he was put to death after that. Then he ordered execution, like I told, and by anti-aircraft fire of his defense minister Hyun Yong-chol, called dozing off during the rally. And that also won many international headlines for Kim. And then it also sort of got a lot of attention from Western side as well, because it is sort of not normal, or it will happen to all the time when it comes to government system or any other countries, but North Korea it is still possible.
By conferring the award to the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, right? Or
Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un. What is the saddest part, I think, of all of this is the price is somehow being widely ridiculed, particularly on social media. And Kim, despite warnings from the United Nations that Kim could face prosecution for some of the worst human rights abuses since, of course, World War II, with his prisons winning comparison with Nazi death camp, and the way he confine people who opposes him is really notorious, and there were a lot of accounts from people who have escaped North Korea telling chilling stories about how badly they were being treated in those prison camps. In fact, the UN Commission of Inquiry also found Kim's government committed systemic human rights abuses on a scale without parallel in the contemporary world.
So with that, that includes a lot of extermination, murder, enslavement. When talking about enslavement, until now, North Korea, the nation does send all those people to outside, especially like Russia, that part of the region, because the economical status and also their reason of having a lot of drought in their nation, having a lot of enslavement, and also torture, imprisonment, rape, forced abortion, and sexual violence. With that, it is very surprising news that the nation has received the Indonesian Peace Award.
And of course, throughout the weekend, something really amazing happened. And I'm talking about Singapore. Singapore just celebrated their Golden Jubilee, 50 years of the formation on Singapore. And of course, our Prime Minister Najib Razak was there as well, and including other foreign dignitaries to celebrate Singapore's Independence Day, as well as National Day, as well as just chit-chat with their best friends, Lee Seng Long.
Yes, and well, this day was one of the biggest day in Singapore, and that was very significant day because, well, starting of this year 2015, the government has sort of advertised to celebrate towards this the Singaporean Day, and of course a lot of performances was there. People have contributed more towards to celebrate.
And of course, on that day itself, Brunei Sultan Hassan Al Bolkiah and Thailand's Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha were there together with our Malaysian Prime Minister to congratulate Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong on Singapore's Golden Jubilee. Of course, other leaders and senior representatives from the East Asia Summit and the UK were also there at the Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong's reception at the National Gallery on Sunday. On the ground, a lot of Singaporeans were also tweeting about it, Instagramming about it. I was looking through the Instagram, especially hashtag SG50. A lot of Singaporeans, they are proud to be Singaporeans, and they were sharing a lot of really interesting photos, what sums up being Singaporean is all about.
So that's very interesting, and again, congratulations to Singapore's 50th birthday, and then I hope we will love to see more improvement and also development, and then Singapore being an example to Southeast Asia countries, I will say keep going and then keep improving.
So we'll take one short break. When we return, we'll talk more on the politics side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, welcome back. This is Grace.
And of course, you're still with us on ASEAN Daily. So when we talk about politics, we can't escape talking about the larger picture of the problems happening in Southeast Asia right now, especially last week during the foreign ministers meeting. I'm talking about the South China Sea. So in this news, Beijing's South China Sea island building has polarized ASEAN nations.
Well, like you mentioned before, we totally do agree with that when it comes to South China Sea, it is something that we cannot neglect and also ignore the issues here. And also it is glad to hear that foreign ministers meeting, they brought up this topic that they could not, throw away their worries over this Beijing's island building in South China Sea, and also more polarized regional body that is failing to back up its words with actions. And in fact, we've been talking about this from Drian ASEAN as well. So when it comes to South China Sea, the power is just growing stronger, and then they have built a lot of, like you mentioned, the artificial buildings, and not only that, a lot of territory marking on South China Sea, where ASEAN, we questioned where is the voice of ASEAN, what have been done towards to prevent China to build up more stuff to mark their territories.
And what is saddened in this case is Cambodia, because it seems like among all the countries in Southeast Asia, Cambodia is somehow pro-China and refused to actually talk about this.
Right.
In fact, according to Xie Yanmei, a senior China analyst at the International Crisis Group, he said that no ASEAN chair wants to be another Cambodia. It is widely interpreted to be a result of China revealing its hand to break ASEAN unity by having Cambodia silencing the issue. In fact, in 2012, it is reminded some analysts of the non-issuance of such a document when Cambodia was the ASEAN chair.
So, like we always question where is the voice of ASEAN. It's either one or two nations will always have something, or it's not, if it is not against the whatever the issues we are having, it will just be silent, and this is very worrisome. And also, no ASEAN chair wants to be another Cambodia for sure, like you mentioned. And not only Cambodia, but we need to know who is the one who is really stepping forward when it comes to South China Sea issues.
I think Malaysia in the recent meeting have made it clear that we want to have peaceful negotiation, and what we are seeing right now, the code of conduct, could be the way forward. Rather than having bilateral negotiation, a multilateral negotiation that focuses more on creating consensus between countries through that code of conduct would be the best way forward. Of course, that's Malaysia's position, and somehow it was stated as an ASEAN position as well. On the other hand, a lot of countries are also looking at this in a very serious concern, because it will also affect them, maybe not directly, indirectly, as China's power grows.
For sure. And then, well, we still want to have a good relationship with China because ASEAN still relies on China's economical growth. But then when it comes to South China Sea, I think there should be a proper mechanism or a sort of policies for China to realize what's more important here. I mean, territory is really important, and China is already big. I mean, they can grow bigger than that for sure. But then when it comes to ASEAN, ASEAN really needs to come up with the one voice to be able to tackle these issues. But then a country like Cambodia, when it's just being silent, it is worrisome.
And what is worrying ASEAN besides South China Sea is the issue of drugs. Of course, in recent times, we see a lot of death penalty happening, and not because of murder or any other serious crime, it's because of drugs. Drugs trafficking is one of the serious problems facing by ASEAN lately. In fact, ASEAN is hoping for a drug-free ASEAN by 2015.
2015 is gonna end, yes, very, very soon. And well, elimination of drugs, it could be possible. It has the potential, but then I would say here it is a bit short in terms of time being. Well, ASEAN leaders, they seem to believe that the war on drugs in Southeast Asia could mysteriously triumph through the enhanced crackdowns on the drug trafficking, and also having this ruthless law enforcement as well.
And more than 70% of Thailand, 330,000 prisoners are behind bars, not for any other serious crime, not even for stealing, but for drugs. And this is quite saddening because 82% of Thailand's female inmates are mothers, and many of whom are incarcerated for actually just minor drug trafficking.
Oh, wow.
Actually, not even trafficking offenses. It can be trafficking, usage, or any other crimes related to drugs. And Asia's drug war has demonstrably failed to reduce either drug supply or drugs demand. And this is really a grand illusion for the drug-free ASEAN that, leaders in ASEAN are envisioning.
And at the same time, I mean, I'm sure there are quite many civil society groups, and also even formal heads of states have called for an end to this war on the drugs, and urging leaders to give far greater priority to harm reduction and also human rights and public health. Well, these three elements are very important. Well, when it comes to drug trafficking, human rights, it is definitely related, and health is we don't need to even doubt about this health, because drug trafficking, and when the drugs are spread throughout the nation or even the regional, the public health needs to be concerned.
On the other hand, in the Philippines, they are facing another problem, and this time is about internal politics. Of course, President Aquino can't raise Roxas. The pool ratings of Interior Secretary Mar Roxas will not shoot up to the sky with President Benigno Aquino III's endorsement of his presidential candidacy.
So he endorsed Roxas last week as the ruling Liberal Party standard bearer in next year's year's presidential election. Well, despite his poor showing in the polls, and according to him, he said it doesn't change the dynamics. If Roxas rating will rise, they will rise regardless of this whether Pinoy or the president's nickname endorse him or not.
I totally agree with that. I think President Aquino himself probably would have a lower ratings, especially with a lot of issues, baggages behind him. But for Roxas, it seems like all of Pinoy people are with him, and that has been seen in surveys. In fact, Pinoy or the Philippines, the people in the Philippines have never endorsed any other candidates and has never indicated to the world who his candidates would be expected for, who would be accept for Roxas. So this won't change. If anything, it would only be by probably 1 or 2%. This is according to some of the analysts. And I totally agree. I think this future presidential election in the Philippines will be an exciting one. Maybe, hopefully, it will change the Philippines for the better, especially the Philippines now is looking forward to upgrade its economic prosperity.
Well, it is very interesting to find out why this Roxas will not win this next year's Philippines presidential elections, and that there are a few written sort of facts, and one of them is Roxas doesn't have the factor, and it does also. I mean, Roxas is not his own man, and also the thirdly is hot-headed and cannot handle the stress well apparently, and then lastly, Roxas is married to Corina Shanjas, who's the potential gaff machine. So those are the just interesting 4 facts why Roxas will not win the elections next year.
What is even more interesting, Grace, and I know your name is Grace. Apparently, if Roxas were to win, he needs Grace Po.
Yes, well, the famous, the person that we know very well from the Philippines.
So there you go. It'll be really exciting to follow the Philippines future presidential election, and we will, of course, provide you more information about the Philippines leading towards the Philippines presidential election. We'll take one short break. When we return, we'll discuss more on the economic side of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, this is Grace.
So, of course, this is Arlene, and of course, at our economic news, we can't help but to talk about AEC. Unfortunately, ASEAN may risk overstretching AEC.
Well, AEC, we want to conclude by the end of this year, and a lot of expectations and also analysis have come up with a sort of a warning that the ASEAN is in danger of the overstretching itself due to the speedy deepening and also enlarging of ties with the full integration of the region's schedule for the year. And of course, it feels a bit rushing from the start when we said we confirm the AEC will be concluded by the end of this year. But to be able to reach our single market, of course, it takes a bit longer time than we expect. And at the same time, there are a lot of things that we have to put up with, and especially when all these 10 nations is about to come together.
And unfortunately, the post-2015 vision, which will be launched at a summit in Malaysia late this year, will likely echo the same old ways but use different words to express how ASEAN will look and the direction it wants to take in the next decade. This is according to one analyst in the University of Indonesia. He further saying that what happens when the desire for deepening and enlarging regional institutions is not coupled with the capacity of the members to pay for the cost of maintaining the enlarged and deepening integration. This is a question that is really relevant because you want to have AEC or a post-2015 agenda / blueprint.
Yes.
But we don't have the capacity to fulfill it because a lot of countries in Southeast Asia, either they are really poor economically unstable, politically still
Yep.
questionable in terms of whether it can proceed for democracy or not. So to have AEC, it can be very overstretching.
Uh-huh.
That's why I question about non-tariff about tariff and non-tariff trade, where people, a lot of business community are still questioning whether governments in Southeast Asia can lower it or reduce it or even eliminate it. It's still a big question that governments in Southeast Asia cannot answer.
And well, at the same time, I mean, we think about the Greece crisis that had just happened a couple of weeks ago, and that's something that we also need to learn, among ourselves. And the region, it should not rush to deepen all this integration, as we need time to access all this current level of integration. And not only that, we also have our own internal issues economically that even to reach the ASEAN economic community as a whole community is a bit too ambitious, I will say. Yeah, so, well, it needs to formulate a longer term vision and also observe and preserve the strategic nature as well.
On the other hand, according to Jeffrey Sachs to ASEAN Development Bank, he said that, you should stop funding coal power projects.
Oh.
This is by a guy who is working in the United Nations Special Advisors to the Secretary General. He's also famous for the book The End of Poverty. Jeffrey Sachs, he urged the Manila-based Asian Development Bank to decarbonize by not funding any coal power projects.
So meaning decarbonization here, it means that reaching the zero net carbon dioxide emission by 2070, and then this will prevent the whole this global temperatures from rising by 2 degrees Celsius. Well, when it comes to emitting carbon dioxide, of course, it comes with the climate change and the temperature changes, and even a lot of the environmental suffers. And for this bank, ADB, it centers of what it is meant by appreciating this energy technology and also energy investments are very important. But basically, they also need to talk out of this whole coal investment firstly. So this whole world's climate system definitely depends on us, and it's getting out of coal. So it is very important that it is addressed apparently. And then with this carbon dioxide emission, we also need to look out, because climate change is really happening no matter how well neglected we can be. But having the temperature change and hold this globally, it is very worrisome.
And because of that, I think a lot of us should definitely look at not supporting any coal power projects and seek for renewable energies out there. We'll take one short break. When we return, we'll talk about the arts and culture of Southeast Asia.
ASEAN Dailies. First and the foremost news from Southeast Asia.
Hey, this is Arlene.
Hi, this is Grace.
And of course, you are with us at Durian ASEAN. On our arts and culture, do you know there's a rise in Singlish?
Singlish, when I heard Singlish, I thought of Sri Lanka, because
really? They call it Singlish?
Yeah, because they speak Sinhalese. So Sinhalese plus English is Singlish, but then only got to know that Singlish is also for Singaporean English.
So apparently that Singapore's government has long insisted that everyone in the island nation should speak English. It's a language, of course, used in schools, work, and government. But in practice, you can't help but to have a hybrid language, just like in Malaysia, which can leave visitors completely baffled. And of course, I'm talking about Singlish here, but in Malaysia, we call it Manglish. It all started when various ethnic groups began infusing English with other words and grammar. English became the official language, but Singlish became the unofficial street language.
Of course, and it is something that people use daily. All those daily conversation you can adapt to. And well, it's culturally, the language is also sort of evolving with the culture. And over time, speak good English of campaigns have evolved from trying to stamp out Singlish, and also it is to accept the properly spoken English and Singlish can peacefully coexist. Well, having these two sort of, I would say, languages like English and Singlish in one nation, it can confuse the whole nation, and sometimes people also do question what is the right way. Even is it the British way, it is American way, just like that, and it is the English way or is it Singlish way?
You know, I think having Singlish or in Malaysia would be Manglish is we are supposed to be proud of it. I am proud of Manglish. I think it's for Singaporeans, Singlish is part of Singapore's identity and heritage, and it appears in advertising campaigns for SG50, which I'm really proud of Singapore's government to acknowledge that hey, we have Singlish and we are not ashamed of it, and that's great.
Well, it does have the identity and also heritage, all this value when it comes to Singlish, but then speaking or even having the knowledge of having proper English standard is also very important, because after all, this younger generation, they need to go out and do business and whatsoever, and then having proper English is very important to present oneself. Yeah,
that's true. What about Korean English?
Korean English is
do you
everything,
have...
whatever it is combined is called something English. So we call it Konglish.
Really?
Yeah.
That's true? There's such thing? Wow, that's interesting. Name me one Konglish.
Oh, I can't think of it now at the moment. It's still morning, Arlene. Well, I need to warm up first.
Anyway, just to wrap up our news, this weekend, last weekend, sorry about that, was the ASEAN Unity Run. And in fact, it's supposed to celebrate the ASEAN Day, which falls on August the 7th. August the 8th. And according to our youth minister, Khairy Jamaluddin, he wants to make this an annual event.
This is pretty good to when it comes to awareness of the ASEAN. And in fact, like you mentioned, it was organized by our sports minister, and a lot of people did attend, but also to have to strengthen these ties among the countries, it is also important to bring the awareness of ASEAN, also the problems that ASEAN has.
With that, thank you very much. This is Arlene. You can always catch us on our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, listen to our podcast in YouTube.
As well as we have a website. Visit us at durianasean.com, where you can get more content such as articles, videos, and a lot more information about Durian ASEAN. And at the same time, when you're on the go, and if you can't access to any of these channels, then do download our Durian ASEAN app and listen to us.